DC Comics, or Detective Comics, are one of the oldest running publishers out there. It's crazy to think that sometime in the next decade, we're gonna have 100 years of Superman, but here we are. As an American youth, it's pretty much impossible to make it out of all of that without being extremely exposed to superheroes of all types. Be it the random comic strips hanging around the bookstore, or the ridiculous amount of Hollywood blockbusters and Batman vs. Superman, there's a little something for everyone. I, however, was born in the 90s, a time when superheroes weren't that. What's that, you're 13 and wearing a Green Lantern shirt? That's swirly for you, kid. Although I gotta say, when I was a young kid discovering Toonami and all the ridiculously cool shows on it, Super Friends just wasn't cool anymore.
Look, I just want some pants. A decent pair of pants.
And that's not to say there weren't good superhero cartoons in the 90s, far from it. The Batman animated series and the plethora of everything X-Men frankly slapped, and all the video games that came from it did too. Well, actually, I take that back. For every X-Men 2 or Batman and Robin on the Sega Genesis, you had yourself a Superman 64. Something so awful, it's been included on just about every worst games of all time list that you can imagine. But there's so many other bad DC Universe video games that aren't that, so I'm gonna talk about a few of those. Haha, Superman 64 bad, fly through rings, we all get it.
So yo, it's Austin, and since we've already been on one side of the pond already, I figured it's time to hop over and talk about some bad video games from the DC Universe. After all, it's only fair to give Batman and his friends a fair shake. But before we get started, I want to talk briefly about today's sponsor, a good video game, Nier Reincarnation. Nier Reincarnation is the first mobile entry in the Nier series of games directed by Yoko Taro that allows you to immerse yourself in the deep story while having that big game feel. It's free to download, free to play, and an action command RPG made by Square Enix and Applebot. And you can get it on the App Store and Google Play right now. There's tons of unique and customizable characters to utilize and fight with. It's got a top-notch soundtrack by Keiichi Okabe, it's produced by Yosuke Saito, and it's got more white-haired characters than you can shake a stick at. If you watched my Game of the Year video from 2017, then you know that I'm already a huge fan of Nier Automata. Well, Reincarnation's about to have its half-year anniversary, and for that, they're doing a revival event so you can get the characters from Automata, so like 2B, 9S, and my girl A2. They're back up to recruit and ready to join the fight. And who doesn't like 2B? Come on. The world of Nier Reincarnation has this mysterious air that's fun to explore and battle through. Any old JRPG fan like myself loves some turn-based combat, and Nier delivers that in spades. There's tons of weapons you can get for all the characters, and lots of stories to see. It's also the 1-year anniversary of the Japanese version, which means there's going to be a global event that's going to be available for everyone to get free items and stuff with. There's even a Final Fantasy XIV coming up in the future, and you guys know that I'm a sucker for that, so I will be there. Its attention to detail is what makes it so close to what Nier is. It honestly just feels like another solid entry in the Nier franchise, and well, it's hard to beat that. So hey, if you're a fan of Nier, fun combat systems, good storytelling, Japanese RPGs, or like good video games in general, go to the App Store or Google Play and download Nier Reincarnation today. Thank you so much to Square Enix for the sponsor, but for now, it's time for superhero games. Bad superhero games.
So right off the bat, if you were expecting me to talk about any of these in depth, you're out of luck. I feel like the internet has had its time with Superman 64, Catwoman, and Aquaman, and the whole DC universe is just begging to be picked through some more. Although we're definitely going to be spending some time with Clark Kent. I would be impressed if you found a way to log onto the internet without knowing who Superman is. The Man of Steel has been around longer than most of the population of the planet, and wow, that's kind of a weird thought. He's been subject to all kinds of incarnations, be it good, evil, dead, alive, or just being kind of a dick. And the same goes with video games. Let's be honest, Superman hasn't had the greatest track record with games, despite having double digits of them. As hard as it is to mess up a 2D beat 'em up, they unfortunately did, multiple times. So let's pop all the way back to the second dimension and the NES. We're talking about Superman by Kemco. That's probably the most patriotic way to start this off. Oh, that's a banger. So Kemco in 2022 is the one company that's tossing out countless mobile JRPGs left and right that all look vaguely the same. Like if you're browsing PlayStation Network or the eShop, you kinda just know it's Kemco. But back in the day, they were making tons of licensed games, and I will say that this is not the last time you'll see them in this video. You've been warned. Superman. This is one of those extremely cryptic platformers that wanted to do a weird open world exploration thing. Since you are the man of tomorrow, you've got to travel around Metropolis, stop random crimes, and save the day. Or like struggling with crappy controls, attempting to understand anything that's going on, and just trying to stay alive. For some reason, if you take just a handful of hits, you'll get knocked out of super mode and become boring ass Clark, who is still more than capable of beating up strangers on the street. Hitboxes? Sure, they exist. I'm glad Superman's like a total jobber here, but at least when you're done, you have Lady Liberty herself thanking you as the national anthem plays. Then I remember that this game is Japanese made. You gotta love it. This thing sucks, but at least you can kind of understand what it's trying to do, unlike the next game. Superman Returns Fortress of Solitude for the Game Boy Advance is an adaptation of the 2006 live-action film. Prior to Oh God, He's Just Like Me, gamer nerd and meaty meat man Henry Cavill, Brandon Routh played Supes in that one movie that was just slightly before superhero films really took off. But at least we got that one meme. While the console version of this game's actually okay, it's extremely different to the Game Boy Advance game. In Fortress of Solitude, you spend the majority of your time learning about the history of the Kryptonians by using the crystal chambers within the fort, which for some reason just means Sudoku. It's Sudoku. It's literally just Sudoku puzzles. Then after 3 or 4 of them, you're attacked by a random movie villain and thrown into a crappy shoot 'em up where you either hit A to do laser or B to do ice breath. And that's it. I don't know who thought Superman needed a Sudoku clone, but they were
wrong.
But there's one more Superman game I want to talk about before moving on, and it's probably one of the weirdest ones that they ever made. It's actually an Xbox exclusive, and I don't think a lot of people know about it because everyone's kind of like a Sony or a Nintendo guy these days, but hey, Star Wars Obi-Wan? In 2002, with Atari now publishing, we would get Superman, the Man of Steel.
Have you ever heard of Circus Freak Studios? Yeah, probably not, considering this and Looney Tunes Racing were all they ever made. The Man of Steel is, well, how do I put this? It's Superman 64? It has a very awkward control scheme where it's like hybrid tank while also making you hold down a button to fly forward. You can lock onto dudes for combat where you get a choice of 3 moves: punch them, laser them, or freeze them. Your typical Superman offering. Each enemy you fight is one of 3 colors, which will determine the attack you gotta use. So it's basically rock, paper, scissors while awkwardly smacking dudes around. It takes a while to get used to the way everything feels just because it goes between being sluggish and way too fast. Fly with jank through Metropolis and defeat countless enemies while following the crazy taxi GPS arrows. Do this?
More fires. I have to put them out before anyone gets hurt.
Learning nothing from the past, this game follows a very similar structure to Superman 64, where you do a bunch of smaller goals, usually within a tight time limit. Every single level feels like Sector Z from Star Fox 64, where you gotta protect some building or shoot down some missiles before they hit like a police station. Except while Star Fox has some memorable voice lines, the Man of Steel's got a bunch of this.
You know, Smallville, there's something amusing about being married to a guy who can see through a brick wall and change the course of mighty rivers, not to mention fly, yet still likes to walk to work.
That's just the farm boy in me. I have to go.
I know. Clark, please, be careful.
It looks like I'm going to Warworld.
Yeah, you better get used to that. If you fail any mission, there's a dedicated reason as to why.
That hover bus. I don't know if I can reach it in time.
The hover bus was not saved in time.
So in this adaptation, Superman's protecting the entire planet from Brainiac 13, which entails him traveling through space to different planets, fighting in space, and zoom into the Phantom Zone. All with ridiculous walk cycles, your cape clipping through your head, and big ol' leaf-filled titties. I would honestly say that this is as bad as Superman 64, because as you know, they had time to learn from the mistakes of the past, but well, considering just about every Superman video game is a dumpster fire, it's a bit of an infinite crisis. Zing.
Alrighty, we got Superman out of the way, and I think it's time to get a little bit wacky. And I can't think of a better way to do that than to talk about European exclusive Sega Master System games.
There's a lot of these. For some reason, a long while after it had been phased out in both America and Japan, the Sega Master System was a way bigger deal in Europe. The thing held a huge market share and received a lot of life well into the mid-90s, even after the PlayStation 1 came out. Them Brits fancied themselves some Sega, I guess.
Do us a favor, plug me into a Sega.
So with 158 regional exclusives, there's bound to be a bunch of weird licensed stuff. That brings us to everyone's second favorite fast boy, The Flash. Oh dear God. This was in 1993, by the way, so like you could already be playing Star Fox or Secret of Mana. But good on Probe Software, or as they became, Acclaim London, for supporting this thing years after it expired elsewhere. Unfortunately, it's not great. I didn't have the Flash getting itself a Sonic the Hedgehog clone on the Master System on my life checklist, but here we are. This is actually loosely based on the 1990 TV show that I'm sure you've all completely forgotten about, Mark Hamill as not the Joker, but the Trickster, literally doing the exact same thing. If you've ever wondered what a live-action Mark Hamill as the Joker would look like, look no further. The game itself is a real mixed bag. On one hand, I think this looks and sounds really solid for a Master System title. The soundtrack here is killer and it thumps the heck out of the sound chip. You'll just be dying constantly because of how ludicrously difficult things are. People look to Battletoads or Dark Souls as the standard bearer for hard in games, but they've not touched the Flash apparently. You've got a really limited amount of lives to pull from, and pretty much everything on the screen wants you dead. Thankfully, you can use the in-game cheats to get around some of that, but the platforming is incredibly stiff and unforgiving, with certain platforms turning into spikes and you having to remember to hold up to jump higher. Then, on top of that, each level has a tight time limit that you can only extend by finding a clock power-up. Half of the power-up boxes turn into traps that'll kill you, and you can only exit the levels by finding a switch somewhere in the level and then finding the exit. Sometimes that's on complete opposite sides of the map. After a couple stages, you'll be thrown into a boss fight where you throw flash lasers on a dude's hot rod, and it's very nonsensical, and I kinda, you know. There's clearly a bit of love here, even if it's towards a weird and quickly dismissed TV show from 3 years prior, but you know what? If Master System Sonic and The Flash were to have a speed race, good old Wally West wins.
Congrats to all of Europe, you beat us in Master System exclusives. Maybe one day I'll dig deep and be able to play something like, wait. They made Mortal Kombat 2 on this? I think it's time for a team up. Now, there's a lot of DC superheroes, and a lot of the video games have come out of some of the teams, and there's no team more obvious and important than the Justice League.
Ah yes, the Super Friends themselves. While the roll call of heroes has changed a good amount over time, there's no denying that the super collective of Aquaman, Wonder Woman, Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, Flash, and the Martian Manhunter owns. There's countless iterations of the Justice League, many of which have had their own video game adaptations throughout the years, even if one of them is a fighting game where they fight each other. Cut to 2003 and we're looking at the DC animated universe version of Justice League. Look, that entire series of cartoons pretty much owned, and Justice League was no exception. It's just unfortunate that a lot of the games from it sucked the big one. That is, unless we're talking about Justice League Heroes by Snowblind, the people that gave us Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance and Champions of Norath. But that's an ARPG like Ultimate Alliance, and that's Austin bait, so yeah. No dubs today though, we're all about the L's. And one of the biggest ones I can think of is Justice League Chronicles for the Game Boy Advance. Yeah, that's about what I expected. Justice League Chronicles is a top-down action game where you, well, fight stuff. There's no progression, no levels, no unlocks, just punching. 3 campaigns with 3 different character combinations, barely any story, moving forward or up and killing stuff before it kills you. Exciting. I know, but at least we've got high scores. Stuff tries to murder you super fast too. I feel like I'm fighting for my freaking life at all times, especially in some of the Game Boy Advanced FOD 7 sections. Each campaign is like 30 to 40 minutes long if you're playing as a duo, Superman and Wonder Woman, Batman and Hot Girl, or Green Lantern and the Flash. There's just a lot of awkwardly doing your one combo and trying to fight random enemies and bosses, subtle or not. The DC animated universe deserves so much better. Unfortunately, shallow gameplay, underutilized characters, and weak farty music it is.
A few years after Justice League would come the very popular Young Justice, a show that wasn't quite related to the DC animated universe but was still talked about quite a bit. That was until it got canceled because the boys weren't buying toys.
Yeah, seriously. Mattel was like, boys aren't buying enough of the toys, we better cancel it. Good job. Young Justice and its newer seasons on HBO Max coming out, like now, are held in pretty high regard. The show was like, what if Teen Titans took itself a lot more seriously and wanted to tackle more mature concepts? It deals with loss, despair, and the many injustices in the world. It's totally separate from most DC continuities, and cool, I like that. Well, unfortunately, it also has two of the worst video games I've ever played. Young Justice Legacy for the everything at the time, and the 3DS. The main console version was developed by Freedom Factory Studios, responsible for A Whole Bunch of Nothing and Kick-Ass 2, Radsport Evolution 2009, baby. The 3DS version of Legacy is a turn-based RPG that sucks. I don't know if I've ever played like a bad strategy RPG before, but here we are. Really nothing to say on that. It's when you turn on the Xbox 360 version that it's like, excuse me? Artemis? What's going on here? What? Young Justice Legacy wanted to be Marvel Ultimate Alliance real bad. From a pure functional concept, it's about the same. You gain levels by fighting dudes, completing missions, there's a lot of dialogue between your favorite heroes, although most of it's like a shallow recreation of the show itself. You've even got playable characters who do control differently. There's light melee attacks, heavy attacks, picking up items, throwing them, grabbing, jumping, floating, and cooldowns like healing fields or just firing a bow. There's a lot of variety in each of the characters, but my god, Legacy's got some of the most unfun and stiff combat you'll experience. You'll basically just spam your 3-hit combos over and over while hitting the cooldowns and hoping you don't die. Unfortunately, most of the boss fights are just like a corpse run where you'll res your dudes who die and then use your cooldowns while hoping you can whittle down the boss's HP in time. Have fun properly avoiding attacks or doing anything interesting. This whole game's kind of a case of some of the most bland and downright boring gameplay coming in and draining the life out of a concept. That and the in-game visuals are a little cursed. Also, I hope you don't mind the straight-up hard freeze on like a console too. Perfect. You know, the concept of these alternate and younger versions of superheroes is such a great idea, not just for a show, but for a game. I've just never seen something implode on itself due to how bad it feels. The whole thing is like the in-game treasure chests. You find some of them, open them, and there's just nothing. There's nothing. It's a metaphor for this whole game. Don't play Young Justice Legacy. Just don't.
Before we move on to the cool normie superhero that, oh god, you know I'm gonna be talking about, we need to check in with Swirly Kid and Green Lantern.
I don't really know much about Green Lantern. I mean, green is my favorite color, but that's not gonna help when your first exposure to him is that Ryan Reynolds movie. One of the only movies I almost walked out of, and didn't because I was with my mom, who was only there to hopefully see his ass. And well, it worked out. Well, that awful movie with its 26 on Rotten Tomatoes got itself a few video games, one of which is actually okay, and that makes sense considering it was made by Double Helix, who made the fantastic Killer Instinct and Strider reboots. It's a decent enough God of War clone. However, there's a totally different version on the Nintendo variety of consoles, one made by Kryptonite Games. If you were big into playing Game Boy Advance or Nintendo DS licensed titles, you probably played something from them. Well, their version of Green Lantern is actually as bad as the movie. It's a 2D run and gun style of affair where you fight dudes to get from point A to B. Sound familiar? Except this one uses the Wiimote for aiming. Put that cursor on the screen and shoot at enemies while also doing 2D Metroidvania-ing verb.
It's what you do.
Except there's barely anything to find. Most of the maps are a left to right kind of thing, and all the power-ups you get basically just change the way your Green Lantern powers look. It's an extremely basic game that just doesn't feel good. I think if you were to play this on the 3DS, where you have the stylus and maybe slightly lower expectations, it would be fine, but on what's supposed to be the slightly bigger kid console, it's pretty bad.
Enough dilly-dallying, it's Batman time. Batman has been around for so long, just in video games, that you know I had to dig around to find some cool stuff. So we're gonna be talking about spin-offs, we're gonna be talking about sequel shows, we're gonna be talking about other characters, and most importantly, bat nipples.
Batman is arguably the most popular superhero of all time. In the dead zone known as the mid-2000s with its weird comedy shtick superhero movies, Christopher Nolan's Batman trilogy helped to revitalize the genre. I don't think that we would have the modern MCU without The Dark Knight. The Caped Crusader has ruled pretty much all forms of media he's been in, and even some of the greatest licensed games of all time. Rocksteady Studios' Batman Arkham games freaking rule, and I'll play Asylum or City any day of the week. I can only assume that the Suicide Squad thing they're working on is that's gonna be great too. However, prior to those, Batman was like the joke franchise. If you wanted to play a terrible licensed game, you'd pop in the latest Superman or Batman thing, have yourself a hearty laugh, and get that real 2 out of 10 experience. The most notorious probably being Batman Dark Tomorrow, a game so awful the Xbox version actually got a lower review score than God Hand. Dang. Kemco's licensed game destruction wasn't just restricted to mainline Batman games either. Spin-offs, we got them. Catwoman for the Game Boy Color. Terrible and stiff platforming, check. 9 levels of complicated controls, not cat-like reflexes, and a complete lack of exploration. It looks like a Castlevania, but it has these complicated maps and bizarre level design that you'll surely die in because everything's just out to get you. Yeah, no.
Kemco also decided to mess up Batman Beyond, which is really unfortunate.
Batman Beyond is really cool. It's rare that you'll get a story that dives into the far future of a beloved character, and Beyond did exactly that. It showed us a scenario where Bruce Wayne really became this jaded recluse who took the entire world on his back. It follows his new high school-aged protege, Terry McGinnis, and his journey to step into those big old shoes. Between this and X-Men Evolution, the teenaged heartthrob and teeny bopper quota was filled. 2000 comes around and it gets its own feature film, Batman Beyond: Return of the Joker, which also got a video game. So that means Batman's spin-offs, TV shows, movie got itself a video game. A Kemco one. Oh, dear God. I hope you like one song, because that's all you're getting. And what has to be a recurring theme of this video, Return of the Joker is a ridiculously hard beat-em-up that's poorly made. No saving, no passwords, no sensible difficulty, just a kick you in the ass, no fun beat-em-up that can only handle 2 enemies on the screen at one time. When I say difficult, what I really mean is hit someone once, immediately block, hit them again, immediately block again, and pray that 2 enemies don't attack in a staggered formation. You basically have to play with defense mode on, or you're just gonna get pummeled into the dirt straight into the main menu. I really don't understand how you take a golden property like Batman Beyond and turn it into this awful beat 'em up, a genre that's really difficult to mess up, but it is what it is. I actually think that the art style translates perfectly into the graphics here. The red and Terry suit sticks out, even his weapons look good, but it feels terrible in every other aspect, which is unfortunately typical of Kemco.
Alrighty, we got one more game I'm going to be talking about today, and it's definitely one of the most interesting DC ones for me. You know, we've been over original adaptations, comic book movies, movie flicks, but we haven't talked about an adaptation of a Joel Schumacher film. Batman and Robin. The one with Arnie, the one with Clooney, and the one with Batnips.
I kind of love Batman and Robin. It's one of the dumbest comic book movies out there, but sometimes you just have a penchant for that. It's like sometimes when it's your birthday and you just want to get together and watch The Room, or in my case, Dragon Ball Evolution. Try it, I dare you. Hey, guess what? We're hanging back out with Probe Entertainment again, our friends who made The Flash, but in 1998 they released a tie-in game for the film Batman and Robin, a year after the movie came out. Nice one. Well, it probably took so long because the game that they made happens to be one of the most ambitious things on the PlayStation 1, and no, I'm not joking. This little licensed game based on a movie where Robin confronts Poison Ivy and kisses her while wearing rubber lips is the one that pushes the little PlayStation 1 to its limits.
Rubber lips are immune to your charms.
Oh my God, it's like I'm looking directly at Chris O'Donnell. Batman and Robin is a hybrid between 3 different types of games. It's part third-person action adventure like Tomb Raider, it's part open world like your Grand Theft Autos or Drivers at the time, and it's a mystery game. You play as Batman, Robin, or Batgirl, and you're chasing down Mr. Freeze and various other movie villains. The catch is that you're actually on the clock. Batman and Robin has a timer counting down at all times that'll make things happen around you in the world. Certain areas won't be activated unless it's, say, after 9 p.m., but that also means if you aren't fast enough, Arnie and Uma Thurman can actually succeed in their crimes, granting a swift game over. Speaking of, there's no continue in this game. If you die, that's it. Goodbye. Back to the title screen. You can, however, save your game in the Batcave, which is actually a fully realized area. Just make sure you press the do button. In concept, this sounds and looks awesome for the time, but it's when you're doing the tutorial and running around Wayne Manor that you realize, oh God, tank controls. Yeah, combo-based Batman combat with tank controls. The overall movement scheme here is like ridiculous. Batty has a lot of things that he can do, so they actually spread it between 2 different toggles. Since there's the ability to use weapons and investigate stuff, you have to switch between 2 different modes in order to do different actions. The problem is that something like jump and attack aren't on the same panel, which means if you're jumping around and platforming horribly with the awkward 3D camera angles and an enemy approaches, you're gonna have to press the button to hot swap and hope you don't just start mashing away on the wrong button. And these guys hit hard and fast, so you have a very short amount of time to adjust. And then double down the awful controls to driving around Gotham City. There's no easy way to view or GPS yourself onto the map without going to the Batcave, so you'll have to drive to a safe spot, activate it on the map, sit through like 6 loading screens, and then explore. Gotham is huge too. Despite the fact that it all looks pretty much the same, it takes a while to get from place to place. I mean, yeah, it's cool that you have to investigate emails and actually use your brain to find out where to go, but this is a little excessive. It's like the Elden Ring of licensed PlayStation 1 games. Get that freaking journal out and write it down. Also, there's no walkthroughs on game FAQs, you Green Lantern shirt wearing nerd. But most importantly, I hope you like this sound. But because I love you guys, I gave it a shot, even though I think tank controls in a third-person action game are a sin against humanity. Batman and Robin on the PlayStation 1. A game so awful and complicated that the demo screen doesn't know what the fuck to do.
And there you have it, bad DC Universe video games. Now, normally I take like forever on this kind of thing, but y'all really seem to enjoy the bad Marvel games, and I've been kind of into comics lately, so it made sense. And I know there's a lot of stuff that I missed because I looked at it all. I saw them. I dug through all of the archives, but if you want to let me know some stuff that I might have misjudged, let me know in the comments below. Maybe it's time to talk about some good superhero games, or, you know, maybe the Sega Marvel collection. We'll see. Anyways, I've been Austin, and catch me next time when actually haven't decided what I'm going to be doing next, so I'm just going to look like I'm filled with dread.
Thank you all so much for watching. Special Patreon shout out to Blackfoot Ferret, Chris Shelton, Christopher Olivia, Doug Prince, DX Buster, David Molnar, Elijah, GN Pinks, Hey Quiggles, Jay Roos, Jacoby Fitzpatrick, Kevin Zanowski, Kieran Arter, Nick Irving, P-Funk, Randall Bentley, and Ryan Talbert. Thank you guys so much for your generous support. Bam Bam, Zam. Those are superhero sounds, right? Hope y'all enjoyed the video. I had a lot of fun making it, and I have a lot of plans for the horizon. I've actually been thinking about potentially doing a video on Final Fantasy VI, and I know that only 25% of viewers get to the end card. So if you want to see that, let me know in the comments. It'll be like a little secret between you and me. Anyways, I'll catch you guys next time. Bye-bye.